This is Steven Kuhn, and today on the Dov Baron Show, we're going to be talking about how I created the HIT principles: honesty, integrity, and transparency. A little bit of personal things going, like my one indulgence that I love, and a little bit about how the veterans in the world sometimes are their biggest own enemy. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron, founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness so you can reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. Today, we'll be taking an insider look at why, as a leader, maybe you need to become a hit man or hit woman. Remember, you can chat about this show or any of our past episodes on our new Facebook page, Dov Baron Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. Just search that out, Dov Baron Leadership and Loyalty Podcast on Facebook. If you're a new listener, new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. Remember, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you tune into podcasts. We always need your help in staying relevant, so please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. When you do, please go back to that Facebook page and tell us, go to the Dov Baron Leadership and Loyalty Podcast page. Tell us that you have written a review, and maybe we'll give you a shout out on our live show. You can also catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday, all the way from Georgia to Philadelphia. Also look for us on Roku TV, where there's over 100,000 subscribers. And if you're a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. With a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every show, we are honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. By the way, you can listen to us through Google Home or Alexa. Just simply say, play Dov Baron Podcast. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you are a CEO, someone in the C-suite, a sales leader, an entrepreneur, a leader in any capacity, you probably know that the demand for leaders to be honest, to be integral, and to be transparent is there. It's undeniable. But how can we monitor that we and our teams, most importantly ourselves, how can we monitor that that is actually what we're doing, that we're actually being honest, that we're being integral, being transparent, because so much of that seems subjective. And how do we actually check to see that we're doing it? Well, stay tuned, because our guest today is Steven Kuhn. Steven Kuhn, let me rephrase that. Eugene Kuhn is a decorated U.S. military combat veteran who turned failing business into a success across Europe and the U.S. Steven has been handpicked to consult some of the most influential people in the world about how to expand their brand, build value, loyalty, and develop strategies for increased beneficial relationships. He actively consults companies from various industries and in multiple countries. His work with the EU Parliament and German political leaders has allowed Steven to gain access and to help success within governmental organizations as an outsider. He's known by some as the hitman. Some call him the consigliere to political and business leaders, but most will call him the down-to-earth, easy, and accessible guy. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome from Budapest, Hungary, Mr. Steven Kuhn.
That's incredible. Thanks, Dov. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, mate. It's good to have you here. I'm glad we could. It took a while for us to get together, but I'm glad we were able to do it.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. I was impressed with the role in there. My goodness, so many viewers I didn't even realize.
Yeah, there's a couple of us.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, you're hard to miss.
Really? So I started out saying about how there's a demand. I believe there's a bigger demand than ever for leaders to be more honest, more transparent, to work with integrity. That is what it takes to be a leader. And that's at the center of the work that you do, what you call HIT, HIT, the HIT principles. Give us a broad overview about why that matters more than ever today in leadership.
Well, it's always mattered. Unfortunately, it never took a front seat. Just
Right.
recently, it's taken a front seat because people like you and I went through the old school, and we went through the mirror and match sort of NLP schools that you do, and we forgot about us, and we forgot about self leadership. And the whole point about being a genuine, authentic leader is, first of all, being honest and transparent with everything you do to yourself first.
Right.
That's sort of the measurement, sort of the benchmark that we have as leaders. And it's difficult for a lot of people to go there, but there is a way, and it's been very successful over the last 15 years. It's metamorphosed into what I call HIT, honesty, integrity, transparency. Before it was called conscious leadership, self-leadership, but that was all too wishy-washy and too feel good. It's not about, oh, I'm a nice guy and let me be nice to everybody. That's not what it's about. It's about being brutally honest to yourself and transparent about why you're making the decisions you make and what kind of impact that's going to have.
Yeah, but that right there, we're starting off on something that is a very challenging point, because people say you've got to be honest with yourself, and I agree with that. But one is only as honest as one is consciously aware of oneself. So when I talked years ago about polygraphs, and I was saying that. Somebody said, can you beat a polygraph? We all know you can now. That right. Back in the day, people said, can you beat a polygraph? And I said, if you believe the lie, of course you can.
Yeah.
And so the point is that when you talk about self-honesty, a lot of the time people don't know that they're actually being dishonest. So holding oneself integral to honesty, integrity, and transparency is the challenge, because it requires a level of objectivity in one's subjective reality. Talk to us about how you help your clients with that.
Right. Well, the first part is honesty. That's honesty with yourself, right? Of course. The second part is transparency. Now, let me give you an example. I need money for my family, right? That's honest. I literally need money to support my family and to grow my business and things. So I need money. I get an offer from my buddy over here, says, hey, Steve, take this package to Mexico. I know that I will make money with that. I also know that it's illegal what I'm doing. So that's the transparency part. So, for me, it's fairly easy to say, how does this make me feel as a human being? And how is it going to profit me? If the profit is not feeling 100% clean and secure and good, then I won't even look at it. I literally turned down $300,000 just recently because of that exact situation. It was in Australia, by the way. And this is the first step to sort of that, understanding yourself. Of course, there's so much more to go with self-awareness, and you learn over time what it means to be honest with yourself, because you're going to end up having situations where you're going to always have the same situation over and over and over until you say, wait a second, what am I doing wrong here? And that's where you got to keep going back in. And as a consultant / coach, it's all almost one nowadays. We come into this all the time, and the first thing we do is we work on that. Hey, I understand you're honest, and I understand you got to make money, but like that, are you sure that's where you want to go? If that's where you want to go, make that decision now, because you're going to pay one way or the other in the end.
Yeah. But again, that level of awareness, I mean, one of the things that human beings are magnificent at is rationalizing.
Yeah.
So, you just use the example of doing something illegal. And if somebody feels that their back is against the wall to take care of the family in the way that you just described, there's a justification process. And I think that where you and I cross over and in so much in agreement is, if you don't know you can't make that assessment. So it's out of integrity, not with everybody else. It's out of integrity with me. What is my soul value? Who will I recognize myself as being? Right. And I think that this is the work where you and I come together in the work that we do with our clients, is this understanding of, you can tell me you're integral, but with what? Right. Well, the values we have on the wall in the office, who gives a shit? That doesn't mean a damn thing.
And being integral is a byproduct. You can't be integral. You can't I'm integral now. You can't buy it. It's literally a byproduct of who you are, how you act, and what you say. Basically, being integral means doing what you say you will, and not doing what you say you're not going to do. You know, that's pretty much breaking it down to the smallest thing. And, you know, of course people say, yeah, but, you know, and, you know, a big deal if I didn't call somebody back, big deal if I didn't send a text message or the email, like I said. And it all boils down to one thing: expectations, right? So I create expectations with every statement that I make. I create expectations with every promise that I make. And to me, if I send a mail or not, it's just a flip of a switch. But to them, maybe they took the day off or the afternoon off to wait for my call, to wait for my email, and it didn't come. And this is where the smallest minute piece of it will actually affect the integrity, that how other people see you. And that's why we have to be accountable, like you said, to ourselves first.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I gave an analogy recently in a presentation, and that was, I want you to think of integrity as this bucket that catches things, right? And I said, every time you break integrity, you drill a hole in the bucket. So it leaks. And sometimes you take a big boulder and you smash a big hole in it because you did something that was really stupid.
Right.
But even if you put pinprick holes in it by, as you said, not responding to the email or whatever it was, enough of those will still leak everything out. And so it's this, as you said, it's a byproduct.
Right.
But it's a discipline too, isn't it? It's
of course.
Every single day.
It's a hardcore discipline, because it's in everything you do. Look, leaders are leaders all the time. Leadership is a conscious decision. You know, it isn't like you have weekends off. You know, it's like, I'm a leader during the week and I have weekends off. No, you're that person full of integrity and a leader all the time, 24/7, whether it's at home or out in the business or out in the world, networking, whatever it is that you do. I mean, it's something that a lot of people don't understand. They think, I'm a manager at work, at home I want to relax. Yeah, but that's who you are. Either you are or you aren't. It's a conscious decision.
So let's go to the other piece, which is this combination of honesty and integrity, because honesty and transparency, because I've had this conversation many times. I totally believe in transparency, but I think that there's a lot of confusion about what transparency means. Let's hear it from you. What's your how do you see transparency?
Transparency for me is real simple. If the decisions that I'm making, first of all, I'm transparent with myself about why I make the decisions I'm making, what kind of outcome it's going to have, the impact on my world, for me, for my consciousness and for my integrity. Second of all, any decision that I make that affects someone else in my, what I like to call life enterprise, any stakeholder in my life enterprise that's affected by my decision, I need to be transparent about that. That doesn't mean I have to lay my business out in front of everybody. That doesn't mean that I have to show everybody all my trade secrets. No, that's not what we're talking about. And that's where I think you're talking about, people say, well, then I'm vulnerable. Then I'm not. Well, actually, you're not. You're making yourself even more solid. Because when you're transparent with the decisions you're making and why you're making those decisions, there's no questions, right? So you forego the entire, he's doing it because of this, and why is he doing that? Oh, think of this. The worst thing we can do is make decisions that affect other people and not say anything. For instance, you go to work, and you have a friend who works there, and the next day he's not there, and no one says anything. He just disappears. Mm-hmm. And how often does that happen? Because the leadership doesn't want to make trouble, so they don't tell anybody. The guy just leaves and disappears, like he got fired and he was gone. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Steven. It's one of the things that I'm very strong about with people. I think that I know, because I understand the mind, human beings polarize. So we've been this shut down leaders who don't share anything. And then we become these leaders who emotionally vomit on people. And it's not that either. Right? So it's, as you said, it's transparent with oneself. And that, for me, is the most challenging part. It's much easier to tell people shit, but not tell yourself anything.
Of course.
Deal with it and say, why am I doing this? What is my true motivation? Not what is my surface motivation, but what's going on inside. And then to, as you said, to engage in the transparency with the stakeholders, which means I don't have to go knock on my neighbor's door and tell them, but if it impacts my wife in any way, shape or form, if it impacts my children in any way, shape or form, if it impacts the stakeholders of my business in any way, shape or form, yeah, they need to know what's going on. And so I love that. I love that you're doing it from that place. Now, one of the things you talk about that I think is kind of fascinating, and I want to get into a little bit because I think it's going to really help our listeners, is recognizing your own market value. Talk to us about that, because you went from being a military guy to running cocktail bars to becoming a consultant, a speaker. I mean, you're very highly in demand. We were just talking about you live in Hungary, but you were just in the US. You've got TV shows coming up. You've got agencies happening. Everything's sort of buzzing around you. Talk to
Right.
us about this piece of recognizing one's own market value.
Well, the first lesson that I had in that, I got to tell you the story. This is hilarious. So I was a consultant, mid-level consultant, making 5 figures or, whatever, and, a month, and then six figures a year. I was doing okay by the standards of society says that you're supposed to do, right?
Sure.
And on LinkedIn, some random company wrote me and said, would you like to come to Turkey for a day? We'd like you to come to Turkey for a day. Could you come over and mediate for us between these 2 companies? I was like, why would they pick me? I thought it was some kind of scam. And I said, all right. And I thought to myself, what can I charge them that will make them just like go away? So I gave them this amazing number, and they wrote back and said, okay. And I was like, okay, wait a second. Wait a second. This was like 12 years ago. And I was like, wow, okay, that was way too easy. All right, from now on, that's what I got to do. That's what I'm worth. I'm worth what I think I'm worth, first of all. So then people say, okay, you think you're worth, 20K, 30K, 40K a month, or, whatever it is, a contract. One time, I get 40K a day sometimes, depending on what I do.
Sure.
But then they got to see the results, right? So what kind of results can you bring people? Do you know that when you step up to the plate that you're going to hit a home run every single time? Do you know that? Are you certain? Not do you believe, because belief doesn't mean anything. Faith, okay, that's nice, but certainty, that's where it's at. Once you're certain, nothing happens to you, because as you know, we create our own reality, right?
Absolutely.
Right? So there you go. That's sort of an analogy of how I would explain it.
So, but it is possible to hold both places. And what I mean by that is, Charlie is awesome. Charlie has created great results for people and continues to create results for people, but Charlie still doubts his value.
Yes.
So, so what's the switch there from your point of view?
Well, the switch, my favorite saying is, if there's someone that up there, wherever it is that you want to go, and you have access to them, ask them how they got there, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it's, if you're not working with a coach, if you're not working with a consultant, you're not working with a mentor, you're doing yourself a disservice, especially if you know you're worth this much and you're only getting this much. Mm-hmm. There's a way to look at it. I always, it's a whole process for me. So basically, honesty, integrity, transparency. That creates integrity. Integrity creates the authenticity that I have, because I sort of do what I do. And I do it without expectation. So when I give, I don't expect, or I verbalize it, right? And it's like going home to your wife. You give her flowers, she's thinking, oh, geez, he wants some tonight. And I'm thinking, I hope I get some tonight. But no one says anything. The next thing you know, you're fighting over dinner for no reason, right? So either I give her the flowers with no expectation, or I say, hey, baby, I want something. You know what I'm saying? Like, either you say it or you don't. Verbalize it, or you have no expectation. And what that does, that frees you up to do and be whoever you want to be. And when you're standing in a field of the field of humans, and you're completely disconnected from everyone's expectations, you are the center of attention. I promise you. Yeah. What that does is that creates amazing influence in your life. Because when you talk to somebody, you're talking with them directly. You're not sort of, okay, what do they want to hear? And they saw me here, so I got to do this. None of that. You're so present. And when you're present like that, this creates massive influence. And this influence creates opportunities to make more money. And this is how the process works. So it's HIT, then it's integrity, then it's authenticity, and it goes to influence. Influence creates opportunities. Opportunities creates revenue.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you and I are definitely on the same page on that one.
I know you are. You're the master at creating influence, and it's all done through what I call relational capital. Right?
Yeah. So let's go to that. Let's go to that. Let's go to relational capital, because my philosophy is simple: is that leadership is relationship, and that if you I've actually met leaders who say, well, I'm just not very good at relationship. And I go, then you're a terrible leader. There's no doubt about it, because you can't do leadership without relationship. What are you leading? You're leading buckets of paint. I mean, what are you leading? Yeah. Right? So talk to us about what you see as relational capital.
Relational capital is real simple. Everyone knows financial capital, right? You invest and you expect a return, or you want a return, or you get a return, interest, payouts, dividends, whatever. It's the same exact thing with relationships. When I give freely with no expectation, there's that word again, expectation, then I get returns and balance. Let me tell you a story. This weekend, on the 11th of October, I was in San Diego at a very big convention. Top speakers were there. TV stations were there. It was huge. I opened the event, and then I just disappeared into the vendors area, because me, as a consultant, knew I was the only consultant there, and there was probably 2,000 people there. So what I did is I went to every single table, And I spoke to them about their business. And if I could help them, I said, well, that problem you're having, try this and this and that. So I gave free advice. I just literally, without expectations. Sometimes I walked away without a business card because it just didn't work. It didn't gel or whatever. While I'm doing this, I hear my name being called from the speaker's room. I'm thinking, oh, what's going on? So I run in there, and there's a well-known TV station that services the veteran community. And they were on stage, and they said they were talking about their success, and then now they've hit a sticking point, and that they've done research on people in the veteran community, and they wanted to work with Steven Kuhn, and they wanted to hire Steven Kuhn as a consultant. Without ever talking to me, they announced it on stage in front of, I don't know, 1,000 people. And that's relational. That's me getting a dividend in the relational capital that I invested. First of all, immediately in all the vendors I invested. And in the veteran community, I've invested the last year, and I've helped over 185 veterans one-on-one fix, turn around, or start their business.
That's very cool. So, I mentioned in the intro, of course, that you are a vet. And I want to sidebar for a moment because of that. We hear, particularly in the United States, about how poorly vets are treated. Veterinary services are very poor. We say thank you for your service, and meanwhile bypass a vet in the street who is asking for money, who has had PTSD, who has mental illness, who is unemployed, who is, all those shitty things. Like, I have no shame around saying I would never go to war. I don't believe in governments who send people to war, because unless you're going to go, I ain't going. Because first rule of leadership for me is very simple. I don't ask you to do what I'm not willing to do. So Amen. You're a shit leader. You're not doing it. If the leader was a general who had been to war and he asked his country to go to war, I can go, okay, there's integrity there.
Right.
But when you had a bone spur and you're sending people off to war, I'm sorry, that's not going to wash for me. It's lacks of integrity.
Yeah.
So for me, when I see these guys, and I've done some stuff to help vets too, because I believe in helping them. If you put that on the line, and oftentimes it was because you came from a poor place and you needed an education or you needed just a job. How do you help those guys who are, maybe they're not mentally ill, maybe they're not homeless, maybe they're listening to this at this moment. And how do you help them to, because it feels like, because I've had these discussions with them, it feels like those skills are non-transferable, particularly if they've not been in a leadership position. They've just been a quote unquote grunt. So how do you help them? What would you say to them?
Well, man, that's a great question. Let me talk about the Army first, or the military first. You're exactly right. It's the largest employer for a certain demographic.
Exactly.
That's the lower class, the lower economic class. I was one of them. I lived in a mobile home. That was the only option I had. It was either that or go to McDonald's or something. With nothing wrong with working at McDonald's, but I wanted more.
Right.
So the way I talk to them, and I do talk to a lot of those, because they're the ones who reach out first. Like, I need help. Please help me.
Sure.
And what I talk about first is, brother or sister, the only thing that's going to help you right now is yourself. So until you have the mindset that you're capable of helping yourself, we can talk, but I'm not moving forward with business. I'm not moving forward with making money or anything until we work together, if you will. We work together and getting your mindset right. That's everything. Believing that you can help yourself and that nobody's out there. No one's going to give you handouts. No one gives a shit. No one's going to save us from global warming. We got to save ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. No one's going to do it for it. Like you said, the governments or whoever, no one's going to do it for us. Nobody. No. So the same thing goes for these guys. And some of them hate me for it.
Sure.
And I'm like, look, you're killing yourself. We create our own reality. There's actually, you know why they have double blind studies? Because the expectations of the scientists actually affects the outcome of the experiment. So they have double blind studies, so their expectations don't create reality. So once you know that, then you know also that if they can do that, that means I can create my own reality purposefully. And this is sort of what I teach them. They sort of think I'm out there for a while, but then I show them what I call immediate impact, which is the name of my consulting company, Immediate Impact Consulting. I show them some immediate impact, how a relational capital can be formed like that, and how they can immediately get off the streets, how they can immediately set up their business, or immediately have at least a small income.
I want to share something, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, but I think it will help that listener. That one listener right now who is listening and going, yeah, but it's different for me.
Yeah.
When Steven says that you're creating your reality, that can sound pretty woo, like, oh yeah, more woo-woo shit. But let me help you out here. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Some of you know, who are listeners to my show on a regular basis, that I have a big background in studying quantum physics. And there was back in the day, there was a research done because the argument was that we lived in a particle-based world. So that if you boil stuff down from an atom, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you get to these infinitely small quantum particles. Okay, that was the idea that we had. But there was another theory put forward. It was called wave theory. So that actually what was happening was that things were in waves. And what they did was they did, as you said, a double-blind research, and they took two separate groups. And this group over here were looking and doing research to prove that we lived in a particle reality. And guess what they found? They found that we lived in a particle reality. But these guys over here were doing research to find out if we lived in a wave-based reality. And what they found was we lived in a wave-based reality. So they were both looking at the same research, both looking at the same experiments, but one found it was particles and one found that it was waves. Now, here's what they did with it. To test it, they swapped the teams over. So put the two teams in the same place as the other team, using exactly, to make sure there was no messing about. And guess what? The people that found it was wave over here found that it was wave over there where they found particle. And they found that where it was particle, it was now particle over here. So it's a great example of how we find what we're looking for.
Amen.
Right, and this is true, and this is, by the way, this is how your brain works. This is called the reticular activated system of your brain. When you buy a Ford Cortina, when you buy a Corolla, when you buy a Lamborghini, and you, whatever it is, and you drive it out on the road, you go, holy shit, there's a lot of Lambos out here. You never realize, because your reticular activated system is looking for that, because your mind is trained to look for what it is that it's familiar with. So if you're looking for people are shit and they're always going to treat you bad and they're going to make you into a victim, that is what you're going to see. And if you're looking for people are amazing and they're loving and they're kind and they're generous, then you're going to find that. And I know that that's a bit of a rant, but I want to give you that if you're listening and you heard what Steven just said.
I love it. That's a great example. I love the double-blind studies. That's awesome. And it's true. We do find out what we're looking for. And the hard part is that we're so trained every day in the news and media and stuff that the negative stuff is easy. We pick that up like that. That's easy to pick up. The hard thing is actually getting past belief and faith and getting to certainty when it comes to creating your own reality. And let's face it, money, right? Everybody wants money. Everyone's talking about money. Money for me is like a stream or a river running through my life. It's always there. I can take a nice ice cup water of it whenever I want it. I've created that certainty over years and years and years of mindset training, and of course using plant medicine in Amazon. Ayahuasca and San Pedro, that really helps me as well. I do that once a year. So that helps as well. But that certainty in creating a life that I want and creating a life of abundance is, once you master it, it's incredible. I mean, you can literally in months create something from nothing.
Right. Yeah. And I want to just touch on something you said there, because again, this is going to be helpful to people. Tim Ferriss wrote about it in one of his books, that he has never met a billionaire who has not had a psychedelic experience. I'm 60 years old. I remember as a little kid, I was too young for it, but the hippie movement and people were dropping acid and doing shit like that. And it became bad, even though it was designed originally not to be that. Right. But there is an upsurgence of that. And the upsurgence of that is not in the fringe tree-hugging individuals. It is, as you know, taking place with leaders who are often billionaires, CEOs, who are doing it to get out of the the training that they've got fixed in. Yeah. Would you be willing to share with us a little bit about, because here's a trailer trash kid, grows up, goes into the military, becomes a consultant who consults with businesses and organizations and governments. And you just mentioned going into the Amazon to do psychedelics. So I want to address that.
Okay.
Dichotomy that somebody might be listening to.
Well, you'd be surprised. I've worked with some politicians, some actually party leaders that have expressed interest in going. It's just the timing is never right.
Sure.
Look, I don't know if anyone have read the book Stealing Fire by Jamie Wheal. Well, I met him this past June at a private party, so to say, private retreat. And he's the perfect example. Top CEOs, top leaders in our industry go to him to learn how to microdose. So they use microdosing to sort of open a brain. And this is what it does. It's real simple. It puts you in a place. First of all, you're not high and you're not falling all over the place. You're literally more conscious than you've ever been in your life. And what you do then is, before you go into these ceremonies, you have an intention. What do I want? Where do I want to go? And what's my mission? You make this so clear. So when you go in there, you immediately have, when you're finished, you have the certainty, so much so that you separate yourself from the outcome because you know it's going to happen. So you have the certainty, you go through the journey, you have all kinds of things happen to you, you meet your family, sometimes you die, whatever it is. A lot of people purge, what that means, vomiting. 10 years, I've purged one time. That's because I prepare properly. There's a proper way. There's a 2-week process you go through. Most people go, hey, let's go get high. And then they go and then they vomit. And that's pretty much the end of it. But if you go in properly, you respect what they call the mother, is ayahuasca, the mother, and the father, exactly. And father, the San Pedro. It changes your life. It changes the way you think. It changes the way you treat other people, but it really changes the way you treat yourself. And again, we get back to this honesty, integrity, and transparency with yourself. When you get to that point, it's almost impossible to be bad to yourself anymore, because you've seen it all. Like you've journeyed into your inner mind, into your higher self. You've went to the future. You've gone to the past. You've gone to the depths. You've gone to the heavens, and you've seen yourself. And you've created this certainty, like, I'm in the right place, and I'm actually doing what I want to do. And this is why you then make a quantum spring, like these guys, literally quantum physics, quantum spring, is because then they say, okay, now I'm me and I am powerful and I can do anything. It's not just saying it. You don't have to say it anymore, because it simply is. That's why all these leaders are into it now. That's why they're literally in droves learning how to microdose. Heck, it was on the cover of Economist magazine, microdosing.
Yes. Yeah, and people forget that these things were not designed. I mean, I was young. I did stuff that was for fun, but I did some of these things. For me, they were spiritual journeys. When people were not doing it, this was in the very early '80s. I was doing this thing. So that's 40 years ago. I was doing some of that stuff because it was. I understood, for me, it was a journey to get out of my conditioning.
Yes.
And, and people talk about self-awareness, and they'll say things like, well, I know I'm a bit of a dick, but I'm at least self-aware about that. No, you're just a dick. That's not self-awareness. Self-awareness is, why am I a dick?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's different.
Because I guarantee you, being a dick is because of you. Something you don't like about yourself, something you don't.
Exactly. So let's come back here, because, one of the things that you and I agree on, we in our previous conversations talked about this, is that one of the flaws in leadership that we've seen is that the way leaders have been trained to be leaders is to get followers, and it's about getting. But as conscious leaders, as servant leaders, we're committed to giving and serving and providing and being in a place of providing. Talk to us about what that means to you, because I know that you and I are very much on par with this one.
Man, you just touched on one of my favorite issues, and that is providership. We look at, just let me give you an example. So you go back and look at any leader that you were like, oh my God, this person is amazing. Like, I would follow this person into the depths of hell, right? And look at what they gave you. And if we want to use a reference, Tony Robbins talks about the 6 human needs, right? It actually comes from
Maslow.
And then Chloe Madanis is the one who sort of formulated.
Chloe Madanis is the one who developed the formula for it. Yeah.
Right. So if you look at those needs, which is certainty or comfort, and it's uncertainty and variety, significance, love and connection, growth and contribution. So if I look at the leaders that I served with, and the guy that I followed into war, which I actually went to war, did he give me certainty? Damn sure he did. Did he give me variety? I don't think it's hard to see that in the military, variety, right? And did I feel significant? I felt like the king of the world. Did I have a connection with this guy? I definitely had a connection with this guy. And did I grow in that position? I sure did. And was I contributing? Well, now I would say no. But back then, I was contributing to the greater man. I was saving, freedom and, all that kind of stuff. So he gave me all 6 essential human needs. He provided for me a place where I could grow. He provided fertile ground with all those 6 needs. And this is what a good leader, in my opinion, this is what a good leader, not a good leader, an epic leader can do for the people around them. If I'm looking at my people and I see this guy over here, something's wrong, he's not feeling significant, I'm going to delegate something to him and empower him or her to grow into a position or to grow up. Then they feel significant. But tomorrow, maybe they're missing the connection. They feel a little bit outed. So I got to change my thing. I got to go, so it's a constant move. So being a leader isn't static, as you know. It's a very fluid kind of thing. I'm always looking, what do I need to provide today? They're not feeling significant. We had a bad month. Okay, they're feeling a loss of connection. Okay, we got to up the connection. So I got to do something personal. It's a constant thing. But when you have that down, you don't have to look behind you to see if there's anybody behind you. They are there. You know they're there. And they would never leave you. And it's not because you're a great leader. It's because you care and you're providing for them. It's such a no-brainer.
and this is the thing, right? It's a no-brainer, but let's flipping it back. Very often, you know this because you deal with high-level leaders as well. I'll say to a leader, what do you need? And they go, I don't need anything. I'm just, I grew up in this tough situation, or I had this, my dad beat this into me, or my situation, I don't have needs. And I'm like, well, you're dead in the water. And they go, what do you mean? I go, because until you own that you have needs, you actually can't recognize that anybody else has them. So you're actually not going to bother meeting anybody's needs, and you're not going to recognize your own. And so what happens is you give people more money, but that doesn't create loyalty. You buy a cappuccino machine and a beanbag, and you think that's going to make them, that's not going to work either. And you go, well, we give them flexi time. All these things are great, but it's not it. So they are parts of it, but it's that understanding that we as leaders, as I said, we have got to be providing the needs of the human beings in front of us. And we have to understand that that is the power of vulnerability I talk about. The power of vulnerability is the recognition that I have needs and I'm willing to tell you my needs. Yeah. And what's more is I'm willing to hear yours and help you to meet your needs. Not necessarily I'm going to meet them, but help you to meet the needs. Right. Whether it's by me, whether it's by our organization, or as you said when talking about with that vet, or helping you give it to you.
Right. Create the situation where it's like a fertile ground, because you can't do it for them. You can show the way. You can plant, you can say, here, plant your seeds there, and then off you go. Exactly. And it's I wish there was a better way to say it, but when you're gelled with your team like that, there's so much nonverbal communication going on at that point that it's incredible. The ease of leadership, the ease of management, the ease of task completion, it's just not even describable. When you look at the old systems like the 1 minute manager and all these old, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, a classic, which has some great points in it. But in my opinion, they're missing this providership issue. They're missing the entire, the key point of it. And it's right in front of us the whole time. There was an article, I was the British, I don't know, Economist or something maybe. And it was about why can't corporations create the esprit de corps like the military? Because when you're in the military, when you're out, you're still a soldier, you're still a Marine, you're still an airman.
Still make your bed every morning.
Exactly, and you have that in your mind. Once you have that identity, you never lay it down. So why can't corporations do that? And they came back to the providership. That was 15 years ago.
Right.
That article was 15 years ago, but they missed the point about providership. They only said because they provide secure surroundings and that, but they didn't talk about providing. They actually said the structure is the providership, not the people, but it's actually the people. And I just find it fascinating that I read that one article sticks in my mind for 15 years, and it's because it's, I guess, the military and the corporate world come together. It's exciting. It's exciting.
Well, it is. But it's the understanding, because, even if you talk about that providership, but what you're really talking about is the elements, as you said, the elements of leadership at a relational capital level. Right. So, there is no, if you and I are in a relationship and I never give anything and I'm never providing anything, then that relationship will fall apart pretty fast. We've all been in those relationships. Right.
And it's funny. It's like going to the bank and saying, I'd like to take out some money, please. I'm like, do you have an account here? Oh, well, no.
But if you give me some, I'll put some back in.
Exactly. Right. Not going to happen. So, well, and that's what I teach when we go to networking events. Like I'll do workshops and we go to networking events and I teach them how to speak to people and how to do, your PPR, your problem product resolution pitch, which takes like 3 seconds and then you're done. Never talk about yourself. Always talk about them. Always ask them questions, get them out there and introduce them to other people who you've met at the event. And you walk away, first of all, no expectations. And you walk away the king. Everybody wants to talk to you. Everyone wants to see you. Everyone wants to see you. And you didn't say a freaking word except for those 3 things: problem, product, resolution. That's what I do. What do you do? And that's it. And this all has to do with creating influence, investing in relational capital, and of course, then wielding that influence to create revenue.
So we talked about how you started out. We talked about you going into the military and then becoming a consultant. But for me, life is a journey. And what I mean by that is that in the process of that journey, one of the things that happened to me, as you know, was I fell off a mountain, got smashed to pieces.
Right.
And I often say that was not the turning point. The turning point came later. That's the obvious turning point, but it's actually not. What was the turning point in your leadership or your business philosophy? What was it that you realized you're going down a road and you had to change direction?
So many. I'll choose one. I'll choose the major. I'll choose one where HIT was born.
Right.
HIT was born. It was 2003, the end of 2003. I had just gotten back from Chicago. I was the director of Europe. I had 87 locations, 3,500 employees. I was the man. I was fat. I had a big 7 Series BMW, greasy looking face, every day. I was, sweating all the time and whatever. And I come home and my wife had cheated on me and left me. They shut the company down that I was working for, and I had lost all my money literally within a week. All those 3 things happened. And I was basically homeless, like overnight. And I sat there and I said, okay, do I kill myself or what do I do? So I had some friends over, some women friends over, and they said, what are you going to do, Steve? I said, I don't know. And we were talking, and on the top of my computer was a shoebox. And they said, what's that shoebox? I said, oh, it's just some notes I took over the years about my time in Iraq. Just every time something hit me, I wrote it down. And they read it, and they said, why don't you write a book? I was like, who cares about my book? So I said, whatever. So I wrote it. I sent it to like 6 publishers, and one publisher literally the next day called back and said, hey, you're in Berlin. We're in Berlin, Germany. That's where I lived at the time. I'm going to send a reporter over, and if he likes what he hears, then we'll publish your book. So they sent this reporter over, and here I was going, okay, I'm talking to 1 million people here. I need to be honest. I need to be integral. I need to be transparent about why I'm doing this. Like, I can't lie. I can't, and I have to be honest to myself. And it was the first time in my life where I said, okay, I'm going to open up that faucet. I'm going to let it out.
Right.
So I let it out, and it was a full page on the 3rd page of the newspaper, Sergeant Kuhn's Private War, because I talked about PTSD and the issues that I have and the breakdowns and all of the other issues that I have. And it came out on the day the war started in 2003 when Iraq started.
Wow.
And of course, yes, that very day. And what happened is they came out with the title and the cover of my book the next day, and it was a bestseller even before I even finished writing it. I mean, it wasn't even finished writing yet. And that was a turning point for me, because then I went on TV and I did a year of TV because it was war, and I was the only German-speaking American war veteran in Germany. So I was shipped all over the country, and I was literally on TV sometimes 3 or 4 times a day, different channels. And I had to be, the more I spoke and the more I said, the more honest and transparent and what you said, vulnerable I got. Yes. And you know what, Dov? The more vulnerable I got, the more transparent I got, the more people came to me. The more offers I got, the just incredible following that I had of people, because it's like, there's a real guy. And I said, honesty, transparency, that creates integrity. It's a byproduct. And boom, there it was born. HIT. I didn't know it at the time. I called it conscious leadership and went on from there. But that was one of the major turning points for me, where I ended up, after that, I actually went into a monastery in Austria to sort of catch myself and sort of study myself more and find, okay, because it started going away after the book, and I got caught up in the media, and I was on TV and, that kind of stuff, and, that kind of stuff. Right. So I went to the monastery for 6 months, I believe, and just disappeared from society and tried to find myself, which I believe I did. And from then on, it's just been cultivating it.
Tell us the name of the book so our listeners, our viewers can go find out about it.
It's called, unfortunately, only in German. It's Soldat im Golfkrieg. So served in the war. I served in the Gulf, from soldier to cynic was what it was called. So it's Soldat im Golfkrieg. And it's not a war book at all. It's about a guy growing up in Pennsylvania who left because he thought it was the right thing to do as a patriot, and how he went to war and had 3 turning points in the war. 1 in the Army, 2 in the war, which changed his mind about civilization in general and about who he was and what he was prepared to do now to make the world a better place after seeing and doing what he did.
So there is no English translation of that book?
Unfortunately not. It came out in 2003, so it's been a while.
Right.
I've been asked to write it in English, but if I did, I'd have to write another, a whole other book between then and now, because all that stuff happened. So unfortunately not, but it was it's still a bestseller to this day in the German speaking countries. And
Fabulous.
I still go to, I still do TV because of it and everything. It's pretty crazy, actually.
So, as we're on the subject of vulnerability there, I believe as leaders, particularly as conscious leaders, that we are committed to our growth. What is the one thing that you are still working on, something that you maybe can't shake, something that maybe even feels like a weakness or a fault that you, no matter how successful you get, it's always there?
Oh, there's more than one thing.
Join the club.
Yeah. One thing that I really have issues with, and I'm not sure if it's a weakness or not, or if it's just an issue, is that I work all day on creating this amazing mindset. I work all day on creating this amazing life, and I do really well, and I have an amazing life. I have amazing people in my life, amazing family. I literally couldn't do better. I can't imagine. And then I get up in the morning and I want to stick a fucking knife, excuse my French, in my throat. Like I want to get up and just, I want to end it all. It's so strange. It's, I don't know if it comes from the war. If I think of the people that I left behind, some of the issues that I had in the war still I carry heavily. That I hate that because I feel like it's an excuse, but I've done everything I could to purge. I've done everything I could to get rid of it. And I work on it every single day. Yet every morning I get up just upset and aggressive. It's like as if something comes in at night and sort of just dumps it into my head. I'd say 8 out of 10 mornings I wake up like that. And it's just something that I've went to therapy. I've, worked with mentor, I do my magic morning, which shakes it. I do my magic morning, which is the only way I can get back into shape. It takes about 30 minutes and I'm back to being, boom, boom, Steven again, or whatever you want to call it. But that's
what I was going to say. What is your process for moving out of it? Because, one of the things I say to a lot of the leaders that I work with, the work I do is profound. I work with people who've had serious PTSD and things like that. The work I do is profound. And I can move shit that people just can't move. At the same time, it dilutes. And what I mean by that is it still going to be there? Yes. But if it was a concentration of, 100%, it might be down to 5%. But you still got to move yourself out of that place. And I think that's the challenge, is that we can wake up feeling a way and go, oh, that's the way my day is set. And it's not the way your day is set. And it sometimes takes something to shift you out of that. And you have a conscious process for moving yourself out of that. If somebody is watching, listening to us right now and says, maybe they don't have that feeling, but they have a feeling that they feel shitty about waking up with, and it just is always there. What's the first thing you would say to them to help them shift into a better place?
Get up before you see anyone. Like I always get up before my family, because I don't want any interaction. I don't want them to engage that person or that thought or that so I get up before everyone else, and I do 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of ebook learning, and 10 minutes of journaling at the same time. Sort of. Right. So the ebook and the audiobook and the journaling at the same time.
Right.
It creates something. But that meditation, it isn't like, sitting there and, it's not that at all. It's just emptying your brain, realizing who you are, what you are, where you're from, what you're doing, where you are in life. What are you grateful for? Just that kind of thing. And just looking at your life and going, man, I got it. This is what it's all about right here. I got loving family. I got this, that. And then I go to the learning, and learning is always quantum physics. It's always mindset. And my favorite book for the last year has been Happy Pockets Full of Money. And it has little to do with money, but everything to do with mindset, creating a reality. It's an incredible book about quantum physics. It's super long, so you can listen to it 100 times and still catch something each time.
Right.
And that's what I listen to almost every morning. Or, Jesus, so many books. Sometimes I'll listen to Deprogram Myself. I will listen to The Inside Out Revolution, which is a real short audiobook, which is cool because you don't have to learn anything or write anything down. It's like a deprogramming of your brain. And then, of course, if I want to get really sort of sort of spiritual, I listen to Joseph Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're all the things that I listen to in the morning to get myself going, to really move. And you get up, and then your family comes down or comes up, or wherever you are. My wife and my kids, I'm like, yeah, we are happy days. You know, I want to see them smile. I want to see them laugh and the sparkle in their eye. And that's what I live for, man. That's what I live for.
One of the things that I found through my research into the mind and the brain and how they work is one of the most powerful things you can do is change the quality of the question you're asking yourself when you wake up. If you wake up feeling shit, it's because you have a shitty question in your head. So, you know, why am I such a piece of shit? Why is my life why does it suck? Why am I struggling so hard? You know, all those terrible things. And if you go down that road, you know, that's a long path down a negative path. As opposed to saying, well, I feel like crap. Okay. But why am I blessed right now? What is it about my life that is good? What can I be grateful for? It feels like I'm in the toilet, but what could I be grateful for? And I say to people all the time, use the word could, because your brain will say, there's nothing to be grateful for. No, but what could I be grateful for?
Right.
Well, I can't. The wife left me. The kids have gone. I've got no money. I'm living on the street. What could I be grateful for? Well, I can breathe. Okay, we'll just start there.
It's funny you say that, because I know people like that. Like, I get calls from people like that, and you can tell in their attitude right away they're completely in that victim mode. And that's the first thing I say is, like, you can't tell someone who's in a victim mode that they're in a victim mode, because they're gonna be like, I'm not. So it's really difficult to work with these people, because they are in that mode, like, everything sucks, I'm not going anywhere. Who do you tell me? Well, then why are you calling me? Right? You're calling me. Like, you need to listen. If you don't tell me and you trust me, you need to listen, because what I'm about to tell you is going to change the way you look at things. It's just keeping that up, creating that habit. Creating routines is key. Creating habits is key, because the conscious brains, trains the subconscious brain. The brain is a piece of meat, right? It's innate. It doesn't know if you're actually doing what you're doing, or if you're actually just thinking you're doing what you're doing. We could go into the studies about the people playing piano and people who thought they were playing the piano and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that I work with on these sort of people that approach me like that. And I have plenty, because the veteran space is sort of filled with sad stories and losses like that. Yeah. So I get a lot of that. And I do the best I can to work with those guys. It doesn't always work.
So we've gone into a lot of depth here, and I want to close up with a couple of questions, quick ones, and that is, first of all, tell us a guilty pleasure. What is Steven Kuhn's guilty pleasure?
Okay, I'm gonna go all in with this one.
Good lad. Good lad.
I'm 51. And I married, for the second time now, I married a 21-year younger Hungarian woman, who is just my dream woman in every single way. Treats me like a man, expects me to be a man, wants me to provide, not gold digger like she has her own business, but wants me to provide that sort of basis of emotional stability for her and the family. Mm-hmm. And she gives me everything. I just, I worship her, and I'm very active with her. So so as a man woman kind of thing, my guilty pleasure is a fascination with my wife of 9 years, almost 10 years now. Is like a daily fascination with her. Like she can't walk through the house without me wanting to hug her and touch her and that kind of stuff. It's just it's like my drive. Yeah, it's my guilty pleasure. I probably went way too deep. You're probably thinking chocolate or something, but I'm
no. Whatever lights your candle, my man. I am not here to judge you on it. Whatever turns your windmill, whatever floats your boat. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I love the aesthetics. I love the aesthetics and the curves of the female body. I just can't.
I cannot disagree. As I've often said, I feel incredibly blessed to be married to the woman of my dreams. We've been married for 20 years. Wow. I love her more today than I did the day I married her. I didn't go blind on the day I got married.
Yeah.
Right. So what that means is, when somebody attractive goes by, I still notice. It doesn't mean I love my wife any less. It doesn't mean that I find my wife any less beautiful or magnificent, but I'm also not, I'm not going to bullshit myself or my wife. And so as a result, when somebody attractive goes by, my wife will often say, oh, she's gorgeous, huh? And I go,
mine too. Mine too. But that comes from because you're balanced. You're balanced.
It comes because of what you just said earlier, which is certainty.
Yeah.
Right? My wife, I know, is certain that I love and adore her, because I make sure that she's certain I love her and adore her. And
Yep.
this is the thing, right? So,
Yep.
you know, I don't have to prove it. I'm doing it every day.
Yeah, every day.
So when
Every
somebody gorgeous goes by, I go, yeah, she's hot.
Yeah.
It's not
Cars just-
chauvinist. It's
man,
just, it's
not at all.
appreciating the aesthetics of the female form. At the same time, if a handsome guy goes by, I'll also say, wow, he's a good looking dude, or he's got a great physique.
I will actually tell them, a guy, like I'll actually, if I'm sitting somewhere and I see some guy at the airport or something, I go, hey, I just got to tell you, you look way too good, man. You look way too good. I love how you dress or whatever, you know, like that, you know, and they're like, whoa, man, you know, because you don't have an energy of I want something, they're completely cool with it.
It's funny because I do the same thing. We're sitting in a restaurant and a guy comes up and he's a server. And I say, could I have an extra spoon? And he goes, you have a spoon there? I go, no, I want one so I can carve your face up a little bit because you're way too handsome. And he'll start laughing, right? Because it's like, you know, again, it's this thing where we started out, which is giving without an expectation.
Amen.
Giving because I want to give as opposed to because I want to get. And I think that I know that people know the difference. They know the difference inherently, whether it's a compliment or it's $1 million.
Yes.
They know inherently, I'm going to give you, there is no expectation, and you can do with it as you choose, and I won't have anything on that.
The energy says it all.
Exactly.
The energy, when you say those words, it says it all. Like if you want to pay for someone's groceries or whatever, and you expect something, even a compliment, they feel weird. But if you're like, no, it's okay, boom, and just pay and walk. I did it the other day. I do it all the time. Here in Hungary, it's easy because you know there's enough people that don't really have that much money, and you know, it's like $5. I'll pay for the groceries over. You know, groceries are fairly cheap here. So I do that all the time. And you know, my grandfather told me that. He said, look, before he died, it was back in 1983 or 84. I didn't listen to him back then, but I did later.
Sure.
You know, I was a punk. So, and he said, look, you can walk out in the street right now and you won't have a shortage of no one to call you asshole, jerk, push you, punch you, you know, insult you. No one will do that. But you can stand out there for 3 days and no one will give you a compliment and just walk up to you and say, hey, how you doing? Nobody. Be that person, Steven. Be that person. And I was like, wow, you know, that's a trip. Okay, can I have the car keys? It was like, thanks, Grandpa. And then boom, I was going to the Army, and you know, later in life, that just sticks with me what he said. You know, and I literally live to give.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. So as we finish up, mate, tell us if you could give one piece of practical advice to our viewers, to our listeners that will sort of really hit home for them and that they can put into action. It's practical. They can put into action within the next, preferably 24 hours, but certainly the next 5 working days. What would that be?
In business, in personal, or in what?
Whatever you choose. In leadership.
In leadership. Okay, good. Then I would say the old 360, you know, ask your peers directly. And then of course, those people who work for you and the people above you, what they think honestly about your leadership style, and have them put it on a piece of paper without their name and put it in your box, or put it somewhere in your box or whatever it is, and just get that information back to them, or have one person, an assistant, compile all the answers and sort of put them in an email. You'd be surprised. And a story about that one, I was in the UK and I was working for a British corporation, and I thought they hated me because, you know, the Brits always taking the piss, right? I didn't understand their humor. I was, you know, I'm American and going, geez, these people hate me. And we did a 360. I could not believe the things that they wrote about me. It was incredible. It gave me a whole new energy and a whole new power. It was incredible. I also got some things that I wasn't aware that I was doing, which I heeded immediately. And it changed our relationship. It changed the way I worked for that company. And ultimately, it changed me as a person. That's fabulous. Great insight. Steven, please tell our viewers, our listeners, where they can find out more about you and all the resources that you offer. Indeed, it's Steven with a V -Kuhn, KUHN.com. Everything you need to know is right there. I got links, I got downloads, I got programs, you name it, I got it. I won't go into the pitch here, but there's a PDF you can download that shows you 8 ways to make immediate revenue in your business, which really works. You got an audio playing. Excuse me? There was an audio playing in the background. Oh, I don't know. Not here. Very strange. Oh. So, Steven-Kuhn.com. Yes. Fabulous. Well, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. I hope you'll stay with us to the end. Thank you so much.
Really enjoyed the conversation. I know that there's a ton of value here for everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you shared. Thank you for your openness, your generosity, and your great insights.
Thank you, Dov. It was a true honor to be on your podcast. It's one of the ones I've been trying to get on for years.
Thank you, mate. And for you, dear listener, as always, please remember, don't just listen to the show, use it. Go back, listen to it again, take some notes, and look at what you can do. Reach out to me. I'll give you my personal email. It's dov@dovbaron.com. You can reach out to Steven through his website and tell us what you got out of the show and what you're going to do with it, because that matters more than anything. Information is worth the hole in the donut. Transformation comes from application. So let us know what you're doing with it. And you can go to Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty podcast on Facebook, that page there, and you can tell us. Of course, you can rate, review, and subscribe to the show on iTunes, and we'd love to hear from you. Remember, you can chat about this show on that group on Facebook too. All right. So remember, the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing even the most successful companies can be somewhat counterintuitive, in that these fast-growing companies often hit a point where they realize that they're spending a fortune attracting, training, and developing talent, only to have them leave at an alarming rate. If you're sick of investing in training and developing your talent, only to have them leave before you get your ROI, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. Remember to also stop by matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. You don't need a triple W. Matrix.fullmontyleadership.com and get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool. It's valued at $197. It'll help you to see the 5 areas of leadership where your real strengths are and where you need to really grow yourself. Remember, you can tap into us at Google Play and Alexa by simply saying Play Dov Baron Podcast. Thank you for sharing the show with everyone you know. And until next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about how you can be a little more H.I.T. Honest, integral, and transparent while serving and providing as a leader. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.